Hello, friends. I was shot down at Pichilingi, a little village on a river there about 50 miles north of Mazatlan in the state of Sinaloa back in 1974. I was hit 3 times. Toe was shot just about off, kneecap, and one across the top of my head. A young fella in the plane with me named Pedro was just directing me where to go because the runway there was too short. And we went to land on a highway where the men of the village blocked their highway off. Anyhow, the Federals just riddled that airplane. I mean, riddled it. 80 bullet holes right in the cockpit with us. And windows was all shot out. The airspeed indicator just disappeared. The fuel was pouring in on me like it was pouring out of a barrel. And I crashed straight ahead into the river, and the wings came off in a second bounce. The engine and all came under the plane. And the Federals was coming still right on down the runway, still shooting at us. And I kept a pistol on top of the radio, and I popped a few caps, and the Federales got away. But anyhow, we got away on a donkey, and that was quite a story. That whole thing is in about pages 170 in my book, Smuggler. I tell the whole story. There's too much here, but I'm telling about the prison that I went to. So I got away. But when I got well, I guess it might have been 2 or 3 months ago, I'd paid for a load. I'd paid $17,000 for the load. And back in 1974, $17,000 was a lot more than it is today. So I wanted to get it anyway. So I went back down there, and I had a friend, Alan Butts. He's a jolly fella. And he had a Cessna 336 push-pull Cessna. They're big in the inside. So I told him to come down, and I gave him $5,000 to pay off the people at a feedlot. They're just south of Hermosillo. And I went on down to get everything ready for the load. And so I was at the hotel, and I was in the pool and pilling around. They had one of those where the stools are just under the water, and those men sat there all day long, and the water kind of turned yellow around them. I didn't get my head under that water. The big pool. Anyway, a gentleman come up, and my phony name and my passport was Ardell. So he came up and he said, "Are you Senor Ardell?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he shook hands with me, and with the other hand, he slapped a pair of handcuffs or just a handcuff around my other on the arm. So they took me to my room. I got dressed, and they took me to the prison. Put me in. Well, it was going in. So they left me there at, I guess, where people come in designated or whatever. And there was a guard there, and I had $300 in my wallet. And we got in a little bit of a tussle over it, and he took a blackjack. There's a piece of leather with a lead in it. He got the $300. And they put me in a cage. Wow. I sat there, and I thought somebody do something, but nobody did. I stayed in that thing 3 days. That was, I tell about that in more detail. But after 3 days, I guess it softened me up. I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything to eat. I was so upset about it. It was just every morning they'd take us out, and the slop jar was a 5-gallon bucket. It was running over. Sometimes there was 18 of us in that little cage, standing room only almost. So and they would come in there with bucketfuls of disinfectant, just like you would a hog pen, and scrub that place out. Not scrub it out, just slosh it out. Ooh, what a smell! And so they come after the 3rd day and took me back into the bowels of that prison, into a torture area. And they wanted me to sign a confession. They had all the paperwork there. And I'd heard if you signed a confession, you're in for at least 6 years. So I thought, no way am I going to sign that confession. So they put my head underwater and helped me by the hair. There were about 3 of them. And I guess it was a tub of water, and helped my head down. And that water had some kind of gas in it. You took a little whiff of that, and it nearly blew your head off. And by that time, 3 of them couldn't hold a man down. I tore loose, and I found out you struggle just like that just before you have to breathe. Otherwise, you're going to be in bad shape. So after that treatment, it was bad enough, but it was all right. They waited 2 or 3 days, and they took me out. And I mean, you talking about a beating with about 4 of them there with their truncheons and blackjacks. And that went on for about a week. They'd take me out every once in a while and want me to sign that paper and thump on me. Well, I was bruised all over. I was yellow and blue and green, and lips split and eyes swelled up. So I'd taken a whipping. So things rocked on a little bit, and then they took me out and naked. Now, my cell was only like 5 foot square. You couldn't even, you had to leave catty corner to cross it to, and it was high, maybe 12 or 15 feet high with a light up there all the time. And you couldn't tell where it was day or night. I could just hear the people moaning and being beaten and slapped and roughed up out there. So they took me out naked, and they had little chains on it, and they pulled my arms far apart and put me over a barrel, naked, and buttered up my backside. And the guy came there with chili pepper and filled me full of hot chili pepper. I mean, that was just awful. I screamed and cussed and carried on. And I finally, I don't know how long they left it in there, but some hours, and they come and wash me out just like surgically. And I lay there on that floor for some days. I don't know how long it was. They just every once in a while open that door and take my slop jar out and put some beans and rice on the floor right there. And then they come and they hung a dead man in the cell. And he was a slim black man. And he was frozen, completely frozen. And he was covered with about 1/2-inch strips of newspaper all the way around him like a mummy. All around his neck, right down to his toes. Everything was covered and frozen. And they had a meat hook in his side. And they put that in, there was a bolt on the side of my cell in there. And they hung that on him, and he sat there, hung there. And it was hot. It was, I don't know, June or July. Probably June at that time, 1974. And as he thawed out, his side went to opening up, and I could see his liver. But I'd butchered hogs and cows and stuff. It didn't bother me all that bad. But when he started thawing out, the water kept coming out of his eyes, started coming running down his face. It looked like he was crying. So, I mean, it was sad. Then his private parts unraveled, and he puddled that formaldehyde on the floor as a paper started unraveling. And they'd open that door. You next, son of a bitch. You next. So I put my face right under the door. It must have been a little crack like that. And I put my lips under there like that, and I went to sleep on that filthy floor. And I know where Walt Disney got his idea for his movie. There was pink flying pigs. They had wings on them. They was flying all over that place. And I woke up in the infirmary, and there was a doctor there, or a medic, and he was very concerned. And I was in pretty bad shape from the smell of that formaldehyde. He said, you could have died in there with that smell. So then they put me back in general population, and I got some word out and to the man that owed me the money for the first load, and Roberta Pardo and his brother Raphael did pull some strings, and a man came to me early in the morning before daylight, before everybody got up. We was all sleeping on the floor just out in the open under a shed. He said, come. And they took me to the back door of that prison, and a guard opened it, like really secretively. And I went out the back door with that, and there was a brand new pickup truck there with a Palomino horse head on the door. And he sped me away from the prison and took me to the bank. And the banker told me that my debt had been paid, and that the Pardo brothers had paid me out, and for me to get on the plane as quick as I could. And that there was a plane there, and he handed me a ticket. And away we went to the airport, and I got on that brand new 727. And when the wheels came up with a thud under there, I breathed a sigh of relief. I thought all the time they might catch me and take me back. But anyway, that was the 4th of July. So I have a very, very good memory of my 4th of July, 1974. And that was that was the 6th prison that I was ever in, and that was the worst one. I was tortured almost to death. Thank you.